kids growing up in the afternoon, after we get through with supper, the kids go outside and play. As grown-ups, we get out in the yard. Sometimes we bring chairs, sometimes we just stand and talk, and we stand there and talk and everything. The kids play in the street. Only people that come up down the street see us was people that live there. And they knew that the kids played in the street, so they were coming.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Sunday School Hour. It's 10 o'clock here at the Walnut Grove Baptist Church. We're here live, but also broadcasting, streaming out over the internet. If you invite someone to join us, we're having visitors just about every Sunday, and so that's a refreshing. But we also know that a number of our folks, our regulars, what we would call them, our family, is still in safety mode, so that's all right too. I confess somewhat to a pandemic fatigue. I guess there was a time when I was sending out 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 or 8 one calls during the week, and evidently I've gotten weary, so only one this week. But maybe I'm hoping that you know that I'm still praying for you and thinking about you, and reaching out to many of you in other ways. You might even be grateful not to have your phone ringing quite so often. And I really enjoyed the phase that we went through at the beginning when I did reach out to a number of celebrities. Brother Ken Blackwood gave us a call. Bucket Guthrie gave us a call. Jason Runnels gave us a call. I got some of you to make calls and to reach out, so that was fun. It might even warrant doing again. I tell people often, and I'm on the phone too each day, that I kind of thought we were going to be doing this for about a month and a half, and we'd be back. I'd be back at the office, so we'd be back doing our normal life. Boy, was I wrong about that. Used to get emails from administrators at NASA talking about we're working on, we want to get back to normalcy, we want to get back to, and I don't even get emails like that anymore. They don't even talk about it, about getting back to the office. Well, we concluded last Sunday in 11 sessions we looked at the book of Proverbs, and we by no means looked at every chapter or every verse. I followed the basic chapter plan of our Sunday School Quarterly, but it was my intention for the Quarterly to be one point of view or one presentation, that author's view. I don't teach the Quarterly, I teach the Bible. But I do read the Quarterly, and I use the Quarterly to get ideas. As a matter of fact, I had never been aware of that section that we last covered, not last, but Sunday before last, is 30 sayings. I'd read and studied Proverbs all of my life, and I was not familiar with it. Here's a list of 30 things. So we spent a couple of Sundays on that. So there's still a lifetime's worth of wisdom in the Proverbs, and let me encourage you to go back and, as I've said, just running through it like that kind of gives you a taste. I hope that it interested you in making it a part maybe of your daily devotion. Whenever I don't feel if I'm not working a plan, as they say, and I don't have any particular inspiration at the moment, I will most often go and read something in the Psalms, and then, if not that, the Proverbs. But I try to make my reading and study and my journey through the Word of God not exclusively dedicated to the messages and sermons and lessons that I'm working on and preparing. Today, we're still in the wisdom literature. And in the Hebrew text, this book is called the Song of Songs. We know it as Protestants and as Southern Baptists most commonly and popularly as the Song of Solomon. It does state in the heading to the book that this was written by Solomon. We were before we began to go live that there's a great world of debate about what this book is about. It is a song, and if you're using, say for instance, the Living Bible as your guide, if you're using a modern translation, you will see that it is written in verse. Whoever wrote this was writing a song or a poem. And so it's not just simply a tale. Songs or poems lend themselves to, as Randy Wentz said, allegory or to metaphor, to fiction, if you would. Now, there's a great deal of fiction in the Bible. That doesn't mean, that's not you saying, well, this is not true. The parables of Jesus are a form of fiction. They may very well, each of them were, of course, founded or based, descriptive of real people, real events. But sometimes when Jesus said a man had two sons, he's not thinking about a particular man, perhaps. It's not necessary. It may in fact, he was. A man had two sons. He has several a man had two sons stories. But there are a number of occasions where the Bible uses pictorial language and symbolical language. And here, we're looking at in the Song of Solomon. First of all, I have shared my prejudices. The textual and historical evidence seems to favor, at least there's no reason to dispute that Solomon wrote this song. But my first prejudice is, do I want to listen to the advice of a man who has 700 wives? Do I want to listen to him talk about women and being married and love? So I wonder, let me tell you what, someone who has 700 wives thinks they know a lot about women. But let me tell you what, someone who has 700 wives knows nothing about women. And, nothing. But the Word of God holds this book. He had 300 concubines. I have no idea how any of that actually worked day to day. We could just use our imagination, but there's not much descriptions. We have detail. Now, in the Arabian Nights stories, 101 Arabian Nights, the story of Aladdin is in that telling. There are very elaborate descriptions, and even going back to hieroglyphics and petroglyphs, talking about the lives of royalty and their wives, their queens, their families, their heirs, and their harems. But we don't know if any of that was relevant to the life of Solomon. Obviously, it was during a time where in most cultures, marriages were arranged marriages. We hear a lot talk about love and romance, but I've traveled extensively in the Middle East and in the East, and when I was back in India in 1974, there was great evidence there, and a lot of you could have conversations with people about how their marriage had been arranged. Their husbands and their fathers and mothers arranged marriages for their children, and often it is for financial gain, or it is for social standing. I'm not sure what modern-day Indians would tell you today. Probably be a variety of different opinions about the caste system. But we've had layers in our society here as Americans. But one of the things that has made our country great throughout our history is that in spite of difficulties and in spite of sometimes great hardship, there are many, many, many examples of people who stepped up above their social standing or their educational standing or their people who, in America, many people have become what they wanted to be. Now, there are still many people today who feel that our society is so structured and so negatively arranged that it makes it impossible for anybody to be happy or for anybody to succeed or to climb out of a hole or into another tier. But I disagree with it. I believe we live in a country where we have so many, there are just so many examples of individuals who have prevailed. I saw, I posted it on my Facebook page. If I didn't, it was my intention. Today is the 96th birthday of one of the Tuskegee Airmen. And 96 years old. And he decided, he says, I'm black and I live in Alabama. What would be your next thing to say? I guess I'm going to pick cotton all my days. No, that's not what he said. You know what he said? I'm going to fly an airplane.
Yeah, I want to be a pilot.
I want to be a pilot. Now, that's the most ridiculous thing anybody could say. But those Tuskegee Airmen, that's one of the most inspirational stories you'll ever read. And they did fly. They were pilots. And, well, anyway, that's introduction. Arranged marriages were not unusual, and so if you were the king, you had a greater latitude. And believe me, a wealthy, successful king has many, 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 many people approaching him. And it's not that women are clamoring after him. You know who was chasing Solomon around everywhere he went? Fathers. That's right. Daddies. Daddies were trying to hook up with him. Say, hey, I got a daughter I want you to look at. And I don't know if it had anything to do with look at. He said, he might say, I've got a dowry. I've got a dowry and a daughter. But if you have 700 wives, and that is not presented in the allegorical part of the scripture. That's in the Chronicles. That obviously Solomon would add to his wealth, he was adding to his influence, and he was also contributing to the peace of the nation. That doesn't mean that what he was doing was right or correct or moral. It wasn't even wise, but it is something that he did. Well, is this song about Solomon? I don't know. We don't know. Let's begin and let's get into this. Now, I shared this in a sermon a couple of Sundays ago. People say, well, you know, the Bible tells the story of Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Well, you know, the Bible starts with not with the story of Adam and Eve. It starts with the story of Adam and God. Adam and God. Eve was not created. Now, it's challenging to read Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 because it's hard to compare them. But God created Adam, and it says he fellowshiped with Adam. And we have no idea how long it was just Adam and God and all the animals and the Garden of Eden and creation. How long do you think he created Adam one day and Eve the next? We don't know. There's no time reference there. But it does say there that God looked down and he says, it is not good for man to be alone. This is in Genesis chapter 2. And so we see that even though Adam was perfect in his innocence, and God, he was pristine in his creation. He was in the image of God and everything that God intended him to be. It still would be a part of God's continuing creative process to be able to establish a relationship with his creation. There is one thing for God to make a human being, but it is going to take a long time of God and man reaching out to each other, and God reaching out and man running away. What they had maybe was friendship. Maybe it was congenial. The Bible never says that Adam felt lonely or that he complained or that he was unhappy. It doesn't say, man, God is the one who decided that he needed someone to be with him that was more like him than God was. Now, throughout time, I can say that today, the relationship between, the possibility of the relationship between us and God is much different. The Holy Spirit and the coming of Christ has made it possible so that you and I can say that there's no need for us to ever be alone. Now, God's solution at this phase in the relationship was to create a woman. So, God created a woman, and this is what we see, is that God created a relationship. He created two people who were alike and also very different. As the French say, vive la différence. In other words, celebrate the difference. Well, it was God's idea for there to be a man and a woman. And everything that is good about what a man and a woman can share was God's idea. And there's not anything wrong with it. There's not anything impure or immoral about it. So God created a woman. Now, I found this photo. Evidently lots of animals and beautiful garden. But look, just a word of advice. If you're naked, don't pick up a cat. Okay? I'm sure that shortly after this photo was taken, he figured that out. I just posted something on my Facebook page. It's funny. I love funny cat videos and cat and dog videos, just animal videos, and children videos make me laugh. But the video is there. We're at the top of the stairs, and there's this big old cat, house cat, sitting at the top of the stairs, and the dog is coming up. A big dog is coming up the stairs, and he's a nice dog, and this cat is standing at the top of the stairs like, yeah, come on, just come on, I'll box your ears. And the dog's getting there, and his tail, and the master, she's up here behind and she's got the camera. She says, come on, and he don't want to walk past that cat, and that cat, all you see is the cat's back. Cat, you just tell him, look at that dog, come on, just come on. And that dog is wagging all over, and he's getting closer, and finally he turns around with his bottom, and he scoots up backwards, and somehow or another that confuses the cat. The cat like, wait a minute, is he getting past me? And all of a sudden, finally the cat reaches out to swat him, but he's already gone. And the owner is egging him on, come on, be brave. Come on, don't be afraid of him. Come on, but oh man, don't pick up a cat, he ain't got no clothes on. Here's the Song of Songs, and I'm taking from the Living Bible. This Song of Songs, more wonderful than any other, was composed by King Solomon. Now, in the Living Bible, it kind of, remember this is written in verse, and so the Living Bible puts, the girl said this. I would put she and he, but the girl. But they're young people, there's no question about that, you'll see. Kiss me again and again, the girl says, for your love is sweeter than wine. How fragrant your cologne. Randy and I were talking about cologne on the way over here. He says, I put some cologne on, and he says, well, I don't use cologne. I said, well, that's why you stink. And no, I didn't say that. I guess that's why I was thinking that. I shouldn't have said that, Randy. But he says that it burns, and said lots of alcohol in there. How fragrant your cologne, and how great your name. No wonder all the young girls love you. Take me with you, come, let's run. Well, that just sounds like a young girl in love. Kiss me again and again. The girl says, the king has brought me into his palace. How happy we will be. Your love is better than wine. No wonder all the young girls love you. I'm dark but beautiful, O girls of Jerusalem, tanned as the dark tents of Kedar. So this language is just effervescent and fizzy and bubbly with every kind of descriptive word, every adjective, every romantic term. And it's just gushing, and I kind of want to go, ew, you know, I just kind of like, now, this lady here is my great-grandmother, Amelia Abernathy. And this is her brother, Uncle Oates. Picture was taken many years ago. And I remember that they're here, you can tell they're out near the woods, so they're at Mama's house. And I remember she had a garden just out, she and her daughter, she had Mary Sue. And everybody in the family called her Sue. And I used to remember why that came about. Why Aunt Sue. Sweet lady, but lived all of her maiden life with her mom. I don't think her sister, my grandmother, I don't think I ever heard my grandmother call her Sue. She called her Mary. Well, this is Mama, and I remember she'd go out in the garden, and she was this old. I remember her always looking like this. I don't remember her looking older or younger. She always was a very strong woman, and a woman of great constitution, and a wonderful laugh and smile. And I enjoyed being at her house because we could go out and play in the holler. She had an outdoor toilet, which was always an adventure. You've never had a thrill until you've used the bathroom with your behind sticking out over the holler in a one-seat outhouse. But I remember she would go out into the garden, and they always had a big garden. They raised just about everything they ate. But I remember, I'm not sure that I have a picture of her getting ready to go out into the garden. But she would dress like this, maybe not with, she has kind of a jacket on right here, and of course a necklace. But I remember she would have a dress on. She didn't put on pants. I never saw my great-grandmother wearing pants. Just not done. I don't care women wearing pants, but she never wore any. When she's going out in the garden, she'd have a dress. You can see it goes down way below her knees. And she would have a long sleeve shirt on, and she would have the cuffs buttoned. Now, it appears now that she's got, in this picture, she might not have a long sleeve shirt on or a long sleeve dress. But that she would have on something, and she'd have those cuffs buttoned. And she'd have a scarf around her neck and have a bonnet on. Big old bonnet that covered the back of her neck and shaded her eyes, tied underneath the chin, and she had on gloves. Now, there's lots of different reasons for dressing like that. One thing probably kept the chiggers off. I became acquainted with the chiggers that lived in her neighborhood. It would keep the sun off of you. Now, you will find that people who live in hot, arid climates don't take off their clothes. You say, boy, it's hot, let's take our clothes off. That's kind of what we think in the South. But they put on clothes because it would absorb sweat, and then any kind of air or breeze would blow on that, and the evaporation of the body fluids, actually, it would cool. When I see some movie and then some guy's been stranded out in the desert, first thing he does is start taking his shirt and his pants off. I know he's going to die because he's just going to bake in the sun. Well, the primary reason, though, I asked my mother that she dressed up like that, is because she did not want her skin to turn brown. Now look at this last. I want to go back to that last verse. In the last verse, the girl says, I am dark but beautiful, O girls of Jerusalem, tanned as the dark tints of Kedar. Now, she's not dark because that's her ethnicity. Her ethnic or her family heritage may have something to do with how she tans. Or there are fair-skinned people who never tan; they always just burn. But so it has something to do with your genetic makeup. But it almost entirely, And this is not a racial thing. I think it's a social construct that it has, in people's minds, it had nothing to do with your race. If you're dark-skinned, you're less intelligent than me, or that you're less of a human being. The fact is that if you were dark, it just meant that you had to engage in manual labor, that you didn't have an education, you had to work. That's really what the term redneck is about. Do you realize that? A redneck is really not. It's really a description of someone who has sun on their neck. I don't know why they didn't call them red arms. Redneck stuff. So it's not that you live in the country. It's not that you're from the South. You can be a redneck and live anywhere. Well, if you have dark skin, they didn't think, well, that person is African American, or they're from some race of dark skin. They said, no, that person is not smart enough, or has not had enough breeding or social climbing. They still have to work out in the sun. Well, Mama Abernathy did have to work, and they were farmers, but they didn't want their skin to turn dark. It is strange that we have lived in a time in our country where everybody wanted a tan. We even went as far as to, there were thousands of businesses all across our country where you could go in and have your body exposed to ultraviolet radiation. I mean radiation. And you could get a tan. And then we found out that'll make you look like you're about 150 years old, for one thing. And second of all, you won't live to be 150 years old. You know why?
Cancer.
Yeah, because you're going to die of skin cancer. Well, let's go on. Don't look down on me, the girl says, you city girls, just because my complexion is so dark. It's going to become obvious that this is an outdoor girl. She's a farm girl. She's not a city girl. The sun has tanned me. My brothers were angry with me and sent me out into the sun to tend the vineyards. But see what it has done to me. In other words, when she says, they sent me out in the vineyards, my skin got dark, then she says, but see what it has done to me. You know what I can picture her not right now. You know what I think she's doing, what pose she's taking? I think she's going like this. Look what it has done to me. Look what it has done to me. Look what it has done to me. I believe she was more shapely and healthier and strong, and she was muscular, and not to the point of the loss of femininity. But I think she was saying, all right, yeah, I had to work. I had to go out and bend my back and mend the vineyard, but look at me. Look at me, she said. It's the ultimate female revenge, I think. So it's wonderful. Now, when I'm reading through this, I'm enjoying all of this. The girl says, tell me, O one I love, where are you leading your flock today? Where will you be at noon? For I will come and join you there instead of wandering like a vagabond among the flocks of your companions. Now, I believe there's something here. I believe there's something here. We're led to believe that this was written by King Solomon, one of the wealthiest, most powerful kings in human history, and especially at this time. But who was his daddy?
David,
What was his daddy?
a shepherd boy.
He was a shepherd. He was a shepherd. You know, I think, this is all speculation, but here he says, tell me where you're leading your flock today. Is she asking the king of Israel, where are you going to be leading your flock? And where are you going to be at noon? Where are you going to be at lunchtime when you're out there with your flock? You know, this is something that, again, this conjecture or speculation. I believe after a lifetime of studying King David, I believe I know what he did to unwind. I know what King David did in order to feel normal. You know what I think he did? I think he went out to be with the shepherds, and the king had huge flocks. And I think he went out there, and he did shepherd stuff. I think he got tired of doing king stuff. And I think he got tired of fighting wars and battles. And you know what? Who I think he took with him a lot of times? He took his sons with him. And there's maybe an indication right here. Here's one of the most uppity, important people in all the kingdom. And there's a possibility here. She says, she's not saying, when can I get an appointment or when can I get an audience with the king? She says, where are you going to be with your flock? Just let me know. I believe that King Solomon would kind of dress down a little bit, put off his crown and his royal garments, not secretively, but I don't think he'd go out to be with his soldiers or his army and spend time at the armory with the guards. I don't think he'd do that. I think if he ever wanted to kind of get away from it all, and I believe that he did something that he saw his dad do many times. This girl is going to meet up with him, and whoever she's talking about, she knows that the best place to find him is to be out with the flocks. Now that's very telling. Now you might see something else there, and that's again, the text doesn't say, but she says if she's going to meet up with him, and I think I know why. One of the reasons that he loves her, because he loves the outdoors too. He loves being out with the flock. He loves the smell of the flock, the herd, and the outdoors. And she knows that's where to find him. And I believe that with all of her robust countryness, she appeals to him. If you don't know, O most beautiful woman, here's King Solomon. He said, if you don't know, O most beautiful woman in all the world, follow the trail of my flock to the shepherd's tents, and there feed your sheep and their lambs. What a lovely filly you are. Now this is a Living Bible inference. I don't know how ladies would respond today if you told them what a lovely filly they were.
Well, most people, I guess, would have to look up filly in a dictionary.
Yeah, they have to look up filly before they can decide whether they're offended or not. You're just like a horse. What? No,
That's a compliment?
What a lovely filly you are, my love. How lovely your cheeks are. Your hair falling down upon them. How stately your neck with that long string of jewels. I believe he gave her the jewels. We shall make you gold earrings and silver beads. He said, that's what you need next. The girl says, the king lies on his bed, enchanted by the fragrance of my perfume. My beloved one is a sachet of myrrh lying between my breasts. You kind of think maybe the young man might encroach into physical intimacy, but no, it's she's the one that starts talking about her breasts right away, and about her perfume, and so she. Another reason that he may find her appealing is that she knows how to get right down to business. Now, my grandmother used, and I'd be interested, this is something else. My grandmother, Brownie, had a collection of what she called sachets. Sachets. Here's mentioned right here. Do you know what a sachet? Maybe you have, ladies, do you have a sachet? Now, they would anoint themselves, ladies of ancient times, would anoint themselves when they bathed, and they did use perfumes. But all of those things in the time of great heat or work or daily life would not last. A bath wears off, I guess you would say. Perfumes lose their potency. Do you know what a lot of people do to make sure their perfume does not lose potency? They use more of it. And a lot of times you can tell someone who's afraid that their perfume is going to wear off because they lay it on. the most exciting, in my life, the most excited, and maybe there's that, let me tell you. The most excited, that was during the time when I was hoping to attract the young ladies. I was a teenager. The most excited I ever got about smelling was when they came out with a cologne just for me. Do you know what it was called? High Karate.
High karate?
High Karate. And as Junior here used to say, it smelled like an overworked elephant.
There you go.
It smelled awful. High Karate was awful. It was cheap, but it had a picture of a guy on the front and a key. And on the commercial, he would karate chop a young girl and just carry her off. I got to get me some of that. High Karate. Well, a sachet is a little cloth bag that's filled with herbs, spices, seeds, fragrances of not a liquid nature, but of a physical substance. Even
Yeah,
spices
like flower petals
we
or
use in
something.
cooking, coriander, cinnamon, and they put it on a string and wear it around their neck. And she's talking about that they'd wear it between their breasts. It would hang right there. And there have been, in other places, I know I'm going to get in trouble on this Bible study, but there are other places, for instance, if you put something like that in your underarms, that's probably too sensitive. With the kind of things like these spices and things, it would cause terrible problems. I mean, that may be where you perspire. It may be where your body odor is the worst. But there are other places on your body where you wouldn't want, and this is just a wonderful, a sachet might be made of floral fabric. But, so, she smells wonderfully. And of all the things we can talk about physical intimacy, we all know that it has to do with the way a person looks, the way they sound, the way they smell. It's circumstances, what the weather is, how the light shines upon us. All of these things. And that's why when we're trying to create a romantic mood, we try to change the light and the temperature. We try to we introduce music, and we try to control the environment. So we understand, we have to work very hard for romance. Also, I began to think, and I found out this has nothing whatsoever to do with this, but I began to think, and I don't know if you think like this, there is a term that they use down in New Orleans and in lower Louisiana that has to do with this word right here, and it's not related at all. You know what I'm talking about? It's pronounced the same, but it's not spelled the same. Sachet. You know what sachet means? It's the way you walk, and it's based upon dancing. It's where you put one foot, you put your foot where the other foot was. In other words, you're walking in a way where you're stepping in your own footprints. And if you talk about a woman, she's sashayed by. You talk about, it was a little priestly. I don't know if we can say that in church or not. But to sashay is S-H-A-S-H-A-Y. And it has nothing to do with the way you smell. It's the way you walk. And it's a seductive way of walking. And believe me, I believe this woman knew not only how to wear a sachet, she knew how to sachet as well. Let's go on. My beloved is a bouquet of flowers in the gardens of En-Gedi. How beautiful you are, my love, how beautiful. Your eyes are soft as doves. What a lovely, pleasant thing you are lying here upon the grass, shaded by the cedar trees and firs. All right, what does that tell you then? She found him, didn't she?
Yeah.
She found out where he was going to spend lunch. And here's their flocks. And he's the king, so he says, you guys watch the flocks. Me and my honey are going to go up here underneath this shade tree up here, and we're going to have lunch. He was probably cut off stick bologna It was cheese. It was some of that hoop cheese.
And crackers.
It was some crackers.
And some wine.
And you know what they had after they ate for dessert?
Figs.
It was moon pie.
Moon
We
pie.
got moon pies up here in the shade tree, and this is so romantic. This is so romantic. Now, I'm going to reveal too much of myself in this. I just know. This old man and this old woman sitting on the porch swing, and she leans over to him and she pats him on the leg and she says, "I'm proud of you." And he says, "Huh?" And she says, "I'm proud of you." And he turns around and looks at her just like that. And he says, "What?" She says, "I'm proud of you." And he says, "Yeah, I'm tired of you too."
I get it. You got it from a hearing aid commercial.
Yeah. Now, that's to kind of set up for chapter 2. But in chapter 2, she starts talking about the little foxes. Now, when they're out there, let's say they're under the shade tree, and he wanted to get away from the palace, and so this is what he does. He may do it every day. And here he is out there where it smells, and it's wonderful. And she's found him. Now, none of those shepherds, not a one of them, even the little boys, would not have the audacity or the gall to ever go up there while they're there. If a little boy says, "I'm going to go up to see King Solomon," and Daddy say, "Boy, no, sit down. You better not go up there. I'm telling you right now, I'll wear you out from here to Sunday." So they didn't do it. But what would happen? Who would traipse off up there to take them a jug of water or a skin of wine? Who would go up there while they were up there all by themselves? Who would do that? Who would have the gall to do that? Other young girls.
Yeah.
They would do it. Hello. I know it.
Check the
And
situation
that's why she
out.
starts talking about the little foxes getting into the vineyard. Now, she is not a herder of sheep. What does she do? What did her daddy do? The vineyard.
Yeah.
She knows about little foxes getting into the vineyard eating the grapes. And so she and her baby are up there in the shade tree, and all of a sudden she looks up, and here comes a slinky, fair-haired, fair-skinned girl, and she's bringing her a water pitcher on her shoulder. And the first thing she thinks of is says, well, fox in the vineyard. Fox in the vineyard. Here she comes. "I am the rose of Sharon, the lily of the valley." There is something about a woman who has great confidence and even self-confidence. Yes, a lily among the thorns. Well, he knows how to work it. So that you're a lily among thorns. In other words, I see her coming up here, but she's just a thorn. She's in the same garden. Beloved, as compared with any other girls. He said, I see her coming, but you are so outshine her. "My lover is an apple tree, the finest in the orchard, as compared with any other youths." Or, as they might say, youths. Y-O-O-T-S. All the other youths. "I am sealed in his much desired shade, and his fruit is lovely to eat. He brings me to the banquet hall, and everyone can see how much he loves me." In other words, they have something but when he goes back to the palace, this is not just a rendezvous for them. He brings her into the palace. He brings her to the fancy ball. "Feed me with your love, your raisins and your apples, for I am utterly lovesick." You can read too much into that if you want to, but sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes a rose is just a rose. His left hand is under my head, and with his right hand he embraces me. "O girls of Jerusalem, I adjure you by the gazelles and deer in the park, that you do not awaken my lover, let him sleep." So this is a romantic interlude, but after he has had lunch, you need to, you know, she's figured this out about him and about men. She is very romantic, and they're both very much in love, but he's going to fall asleep underneath the shade tree. I mean, you know, you can get mad at him if you want to. She decided, okay, don't wake him up. Don't wake him up. Let him sleep. I hear him, my beloved, here he comes, leaping upon the mountains and bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young deer. Look, there he is behind the wall, now looking in at the windows. My beloved said to me, rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, the flowers are springing up, and the time of singing of birds has come. Probably because he didn't have to go out in the wintertime. When it was bad weather, the king doesn't have to go out. He only does this when he wants to. So, let me go on. So he only does it when it's springtime. My dove is hiding behind some rocks. Whoop, I don't want to hit that. That is for the last few verses. My beloved is mine and I'm his. He is feeding among the lilies. Before the dawn comes and the shadows flee away, come to me, my beloved. Be like a gazelle or a young stag in the mountains of the spices. Now, then, look, I found this. I was looking for something very much like this. It's almost identical to what I was looking for. Here are the stages of the life of a boy or a girl or a man and a woman. I hope that you can see that. These are the same two people. There are 6 different frames. And to me, they talk about the stages of love. Now, I tried to find something better than this, and I really couldn't. I don't think little children, I think that they have the capacity to love their parents and love their family. But I would say, and different children are different. I would say that when I was a child, I didn't understand love, even familial love, friendship love. We talked about, and girls and boys at Flynn Elementary School talked about, do you like me? Or I like you. And sometimes for a child, that's very appropriate and very descriptive. I remember I had a little girl one time, her friend dared her. She said, somebody dared me to come tell you that I love you. To this day, I don't remember what I said. I probably something like, or something like that. I don't think I said, I love you too. I think I might have been too afraid. If I had my wherewithal about me, and if I could go back and to give myself an advice, I would tell her, she said, she dared me to come tell you, I want to tell you that I love you. I would say, if you really love me, you come give me a big kiss. But when you're 8, 9, 10 years old, you don't think of like that. I guess I did anyway. Now, so I think of, if you like somebody, even if you like anybody, that's a step in the right direction. That's, I think, often what children, the only thing that children, that is the peak. They don't know what love is. That's why it disturbs me when I see the sexualization of young children. There's a new film out on Netflix called Cuties. And it is profane. It's about little girls dressing up and learning how to twerk on stage. Well, let's go on. The next 2 frames, I think that these are close enough together to each other. They're holding hands and they're in an embrace in the second one. I would call this new love. And when I first began studying the Song of Solomon, I thought of it as young love. But listen, let me tell you something. I'm 64 years old and I've been 50 years in ministry. It has been my pleasure many, many times to see circumstances in people's lives where they have been 60, 70, and 80 years old. And the circumstances have caused them to be alone. I heard some of you talking about that and choices. But I've seen people that are advanced in years find a relationship again. And even though they might be 70, 80, or 90 years old, when they find someone who becomes a new relationship, it's not about new love. What we see in the Song of Solomon, it's not about young love. I see 80-year-old people holding hands, whispering in each other's ears, giggling, and enjoying one another's company, and enjoying all the things that they enjoyed earlier in life when they were young. And so I think often what makes the little foxes most dangerous is that sometimes we're looking for new love. I think the reason sometimes people are unfaithful to their vows or they're unfaithful to their spouse is that they're not necessarily looking for someone younger, and often they do, and often they find someone younger. But I think it has to do with new love. The next one, two frames, I call enduring love. In the fourth frame, they're not holding hands. What are they holding? They're walking stick.
They're walking
They're
together.
walking, they're holding their canes. And so they probably, their heart rate doesn't increase when he enters the room. They probably don't talk about, she reminds me of a dove. They probably don't speak about each other as gazelles and each other's perfume. But they have a different kind of love that it doesn't have anything to do with being old, or it doesn't have anything to do with passion or physical intimacy, perhaps. There is a physicality to it. But there are so many different avenues and levels and layers, different kinds of evidences of love in what I call or think of as enduring love. Enduring love. Where she looks over at him and says, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. The kind of people that when you see them, he may not pick her up and carry her over the threshold anymore. But the kind of love, it may not be the Song of Solomon kind of love, but perhaps I think enduring love is even better, because new love always fades. I've called this last one eternal love. Now Jesus in the gospel says that there is neither marrying nor giving in marriage in heaven. In some sense, one might think, well, our relations between a man and a woman will be of a lesser quality in heaven. Well, I've never thought that in my life. I've never imagined that when we get to heaven, I'll see my wife, I'll know my wife, I'll be with my wife, I'll be with my family. What Jesus is saying is there's something better than being married. There's something better than being a father, a mother. There's something better than being a child. There's something better than being a grandparent. Can you imagine that when we get to heaven, it's going to be better than being a grandparent, better than being an aunt or an uncle or a cousin. That when we get to heaven, we had marriage, but it was just like practice for getting to heaven, where Jesus says, we're not going to have marriages when we get to heaven. It's going to be something better. Well, that is more introduction than it is material, but I think it's a good beginning, and we're going to continue on in the Song of Solomon. That's just the first two chapters. But for the most part, it is repetitious, very much like the song, imagining and thinking of every possible way of giving someone a physical or spiritual compliment. And so it was all God's idea. And God says, it's not good for man to be alone. I'm going to make somebody that he can spark with. All right? And that's what he did. Thank you.
Sunday school literature sitting back there behind on the back pew.
All right, man. Thank you. Thank y'all both.